Welcome to Chapter 3 Canadian History, Part 1. The first European explorers found all regions occupied by native people they called as Indians. The natives did hunting and raised crops. Huron-Wendat of the Great Lake region, like Iroquois, were farmers and hunters. Cree and Dean of Northwest were hunter-gatherers. The Sioux were nomadic and followed bison herd. The Inuit lived off Arctic. West Coast natives preserved fish by drying and smoking. The first Europeans. The Vikings from Iceland who colonized Greenland also reached Labrador and the island of Newfoundland. John Cabot. European exploration began in 1497 with expedition of John Cabot, who first drew the map of Canada's east coast. English settlement did not begin until 1610. Jacques Cartier. Between 1534 and 1542 Cartier made 3 voyages across the Atlantic, claiming the land for King Francis I of France. He heard 2 captured guides speak Iroquoian word Canada meaning village. By 1550s, name of Canada began appearing on maps. Royal New France. In 1604, first European settlement north of Florida was set up by French explorers Pierre de Monts and Samuel Champlain in St. Croix Island, present-day Maine, then at Port Royal, in Acadia, present-day Nova Scotia. In 1608, Samuel Champlain built a fortress at now Quebec City. French and Iroquois battled for a century and made peace in 1701. French and Aboriginals traded for driven by demand for beaver pelts in Europe. Outstanding leaders like Jean Talon, Bishop Laval, Count Frontenac built a French empire in North America from Hudson Bay to Gulf of Mexico. Count Frontenac refused to surrender Quebec to English in 1690. Sir Guy Carleton, as governor of Quebec, defended the rights of the Canadians, defeated an American military invasion of Quebec in 1775, and supervised the Loyalist migration to Nova Scotia and Quebec in 1782–83. Struggle for a continent. In 1670, King Charles II of England granted Hudson Bay Company exclusive trading rights over the watershed draining in Hudson Bay. The skilled and courageous men who traveled by canoe were called voyageurs and coureurs de bois, and formed strong alliances with First Nations. In 1700s France and Britain fought for control of North America. In 1759, Britain defeated French in Battle of Plains of Abraham in Quebec City, ending French Empire in America. Commanders of both armies, Brigadier James Wolfe and Marquis de Montcalm, were killed leading their troops in battle. Province of Quebec. After the war, Great Britain renamed the colony the Province of Quebec. French-speaking Catholic people are known as habitants or Canadians. Quebec Act of 1774. To better govern the French Roman Catholic majority, the British Parliament passed the Quebec Act of 1774. It is one of the constitutional foundations of Canada, and accommodates principles of British institutions. It allowed religious freedom for Catholics and permitted them to hold public office, a practice not then allowed in Britain. The Quebec Act restored French civil law while maintaining British criminal law. United Empire Loyalist. In 1776, the 13 British colonies to the south of Quebec declared independence and formed United States. North America was again divided by war. More than 40,000 people loyal to the Crown, called Loyalists, fled the oppression of the American Revolution to settle in Nova Scotia and Quebec. Joseph Brant led thousands of Loyalist Mohawk Indians into Canada. About 3,000 black Loyalists, freedmen and slaves, came north seeking a better life. Beginnings of democracy. In 1758, First Representative Assembly was elected in Halifax, Nova Scotia. The Constitutional Act of 1791 divided Province of Quebec into Upper Canada, later Ontario, which was mainly Loyalists, Protestant and English-speaking, and Lower Canada, later Quebec, heavily Catholic and French-speaking. Act also granted first-time legislative assemblies elected by people. The name Canada became official. Atlantic colonies and 2 Canadas were known as British North America. Abolition of Slavery. In 1793, Upper Canada led by Lieutenant Colonel John Graves Simcoe became the first province to move towards abolition of slavery. John Simcoe was Upper Canada's first lieutenant governor and founder of the city of York, now known as Toronto. In 1807, British Parliament prohibited buying and selling of slaves. In 1833, slavery was abolished throughout British Empire. Thousands of slaves escaped the United States, followed North Star, and settled in Canada via Underground Railroad, Christian anti-slavery network. Mary Ann Shadd Cary was outspoken activist in the movement to abolish slavery in the USA. In 1853 she became the first woman publisher in Canada, helping to found and edit the Provincial Freeman, a weekly newspaper dedicated to anti-slavery, black immigration to Canada, temperance and upholding British rule. A growing economy. The first companies in Canada were formed during French and British regimes and competed for fur trade. Hudson's Bay Company traded from Fort Garry, Winnipeg, Fort Edmonton, Fort Langley, Vancouver, and Fort Victoria. These trading posts later became cities. In 1832, Montreal Stock Exchange was opened. Canada's economy was based on farming and exporting fur, fish, and timber. Thank you for watching. For more content on Canadian Citizenship Test, like, subscribe and share.